we're going to go into 4 customers who have been absolute pillars for us. This is what I want you, this session is for you. The mics will be open. We want you to ask questions of how did they break their shackles and get here. So please, come on up, gentlemen. I'm going to introduce you as you come. Craig here. I'm not legally allowed to tell where he works, but he works for a large outdoor retail company. So that's him. Brad Martin, Chick-fil-A, a great partner. Devin Miller, Seattle Public Schools, and John Kilpatrick. You may know John on Twitter and a lot of the blogosphere. John's very, very popular, absolutely a stellar rockstar customer for us from NVIDIA. Let me start with, they're all network engineers. They're not lawyers. Don't hold anything they say against them or their companies. This is an informal chit chat. And what they're saying mostly is their opinion, not their company's opinion. So please, don't tweet this and say, wow, NVIDIA think Aruba sucks. And they're like, no, don't say that, right? That's just his opinion, right? So anyway, with that, let me start. Maybe, John, I'll start with you. Tell us about sort of oh, you know what? We have a video for you. Can we run that video? Is that possible? Okay. If you want to know what is a complex network, this is literally John's office that he has to provide wireless for. This is NVIDIA's global headquarters that he has to provide wireless. If any of you think you have a harder job than John, think again. This is just the outdoor, and here we go. Those robots are real?
Some of them are.
Some of them are real. Okay. So you have to cover Wi-Fi for all of this.
Yes.
And now we're indoors.
So if you're a Warriors fan, this building, if you scoop out so if you take the shell of the building and go all the way down to the bottom of the parking level, you can fit the entire Chase Center, which is the Warriors home court, inside of this building. That's how large of a structure it is. It took about 3 years to build. Gensler, our architects, are stunning. The video doesn't do it justice. It's so gorgeous inside. The building next to it, Endeavor, a different concept, but also stunning. I've said it'd be a good set for Westworld if they ever, or some future sci-fi robot killing us movie, if they really needed a place that looks like the future.
So John, tell us, what was your network like before? Why did you choose Juniper Mist?
Well, so without getting into too many names, when Wi-Fi 6 came out, our incumbent vendor made an interesting choice in terms of abandoning their legacy customers' installations. Their Wi-Fi 6 was going to require, as they were moving forward, it was an entirely new controller operating system, and so all that operational knowledge was going to be lost. And based on that decision, we decided to do a clean sheet bake-off, scorecard, and go, who would we choose today if we didn't have an incumbent? And Mist won that evaluation.
Awesome, thank you. Actually, that's a great question. For many of you, the thing that holds you back is incumbency. Imagine if you could ask yourself that question: how would we build our network today if we didn't get locked down with our incumbent? So, great question. Devin, thank you for joining us. Seattle Public Schools. How did it happen?
About 4 years ago or so, we had realized that we had a serious lack of visibility in the network. So we started exploring user experience tools to monitor the experience from a user perspective. And then when it came time to replace our legacy end-of-life wireless LAN, we really wanted to focus on that. Went through an RFP process, and Juniper's solution was heavily focused on that user experience, and that's what we wanted. It was really robust and polished compared to some of the other solutions that we compared it against, and it's been working out really well.
And the rest is history. Thank you very much. All right, Brad, the most favorite restaurant for us, for our restaurant chain-wise, Chick-fil-A. Absolutely, customer service is everything. So how did you come to Juniper Mist?
Yeah, it was back in the summer of, late summer 2019. Our previous vendor was good. It was a good product. It served us well for over a decade, and it started to show some cracks. It was not keeping up with just innovation, especially around AI or API integrations for automations and integrations. So also just some support issues, like some radio resource management, just sticky client roaming. And we do, a lot of Wi-Fi outside and inside. I find that the outdoor Wi-Fi is more challenging, but I got a call from Jess Ward, who's probably in this room, and he was over sales for our region for Mist at the time. I think he was new to Juniper. Anyway, he called me, he's like, hey, I have a new wireless product you need to see. And I'm like, okay. I was a little skeptical. But I agreed to meet with them. So him and Rich Korb, we got in a room together and they showed me a demo, and I was like, this is exactly what we're looking for. If it works, it's almost too good to be true. So it just met all our requirements, and I'd never seen anything like it. So I've been with Chick-fil-A for 23 years, and as a network engineer, we don't switch a lot of vendors out. We usually build these relationships and keep them going for a long time. And technology always breaks, so we're always, how the companies handle that is part of that partnership. So we don't change out a lot. And we got some gear in a lab, and it was fall, right? We don't do a lot of changes before Thanksgiving and the holidays. That's usually a busy time for us. But we went into the first store in November 2019, just before Thanksgiving, and I got to know Rich Korb really well. He sat with me for about 3 days, and we worked through all the bumps and bugs and everything, and we got things flawless. And I think it was at that point I realized, hey, these guys care. It's like, Rich and Jess and Sudhir, yourself, and Sandeep, and our new SC, Sean Freeman. I mean, all these people just care. We like to partner with people who care. It makes it really easy. So from them, we rolled. It took a while to convince leadership, hey, this is, no one heard of Mist, right? Mist was, from a brand recognition in IT, leadership in IT, it was like, who's Mist, Of course, Juniper acquired them, so people did obviously know Juniper. At that point, though, I got agreement to do a 5-store pilot, and that went flawlessly, so smooth that it just became, I didn't have to even ask. It was, let's just start rolling, and we started rolling, and something funny happened. So today we sit in mid-June, we have about 2 more weeks and we'll be done with a 20,000 AP rollout, completely done, which is awesome. And it has been the smoothest rollout for us. So, but I look back and I'm like, if Jess had not called, and I don't want to think about where we would be without Mist. And the last thing I'll say is, as a network engineer, you always hear about the problems. You always hear when things are broken, and no one ever comes in and it's like, hey, thanks, the Wi-Fi worked great that day. You get feedback from your boss, hey, you're doing a great job, things are working. You don't really get that. But what we started to see was store operators calling in, and we have these panels too where we bring in store operators and that kind of thing. And the CIO, Juniper Mist has a great brand recognition among the Chick-fil-A, IT, leadership, everything. So I've never had so many shout outs directly from operators, end users, just saying, hey, thanks for investing in the network, and Mist is that name that gets attached to it. So
thank you for speaking to the people part of it, Brad, as well. Thank you for being an amazing partner. One thing we'll tell you, Sujay, from the very beginning, we say we work with you for life. We go after for lifelong customers. Even we may change vendors, but Fortune 1, Fortune 2, Fortune 4, they've been with us from generations of network. And Jess Ward actually sold you your previous network, came over, and the people matter. Thank you very much for calling that out. So, all right, Craig, you are actually one of our newest customers, relatively speaking. Outdoor, you have a complex outdoor retail operation. How did you end up with Juniper Mist?
We have a very similar story to some of these guys as well. We had an older incumbent, older equipment that just really wasn't keeping up with the business anymore, and we sought, we found that we needed greater visibility as well as more reliable coverage in our stores. The user experience being a major part of that, right? Providing guest Wi-Fi in the stores. And as well as like inventory management systems, or known as MSAs, and things to make sure orders are being processed and deliveries are being taken and such. So, the similar thing. We started out with a handful of stores, and just really came to fall in love with it, and everything was just simple and easy. And
so, relative to the PowerPoint that was presented to you, how much did it actually materialize in the deployment? What promises and the opportunities that they said, wow, Marvis is this magic thing, it's going to save your life type of thing. How much did actually show up in the product in the store?
What was shown to us that really showed up in the store, I mean, it was most of it, really. I mean, the zero touch.
By the way, that's the right answer.
Right,
no, we
yeah.
didn't practice
right.
this thing, so you got to help me out here.
That's fine.
Everything was the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, no, the guy from AWS actually did a really good job of covering that. Being able to like stage maps and like AP locations and things, and simulate with various software, of course, and then actually deploying the APs and wired infrastructure. It's just plug it in and it hits the internet, and then it's on and it works.
Awesome, very good. So if you have questions for them, as an enterprise, a school district, a small box retailer, big box retailer, we have a diversity of verticals here. Absolutely, shout out, go to a mic, raise your hand. Again, free form. But let me ask you, we're gonna go through three things, right? How was the experience in the installation and onboarding? How was the experience in the config, deploy, operate model? And then, what's the overall operations post-deployment kind of thing? But if any of you have questions, do any of you have a question for one of these? Yeah, please.
Hello, I'm Adam from Dallas. We're in the government space, so there's things we want to take advantage of, but there's other things like FedRAMP and things. But I'm curious for you're rolling out new stores, right? So every year you're doing some level of investment in maybe the current offerings that you have, maybe put the same wireless in the new store and switching. And so I'm kind of curious, you switch vendors, but even the previous year you've probably had a significant investment in new IT equipment, right? You probably don't have a situation where all your equipment's old. Maybe some of your older stores are old, but last year you may have, put 10 locations online, and that's with your old product. Now you're going to a new one. So I'm kind of curious, how you work through that, knowing that, just the previous year you've made an investment in a different product already.
Great question. Anyone want to take that? So the question, Tom, was, just last year, I may have bought a different vendor, right? Now I find this cool new toy. How do I justify going and making a different decision the very next year after I told my IT team that previous solution was the new solution, right? So any of you? Yeah, Brett?
I'll take it. It's probably different for everyone, but we have a 5-6 year refresh cycle anyway for all the equipment at the store, at least as far as network goes. So, for us, once we find something new, and like I said earlier, it's not easy to change typically, but once we find something new that's innovative and we know it's going to take us years ahead of where we are, we'll test it, and then we'll get it in a few stores, but we'll draw a line because we open about 150 new stores a year. So we'll draw that line, and at some point, that hardware is starting to flow. The new solutions flowing out to the grand openings, basically. And it takes it takes us about 2.5 years to do a full refresh. So by the time we get done, I see what you're saying. There is this, I just bought this gear, but that ends up being more towards the end of the rollout. And by the time we actually hit it, it's 2 or 3 years old anyway. So
for excuse me, for us, I've just thinking about opening new stores like 1 year versus the other, right? We had new stores, or we've been expanding for a while pretty consistently, and we deployed new stores with brand new, other vendor switches, but the ease of management and deployment of the Juniper solution, right, of the wired assurance piece, it just made sense to just go for it. I mean, it was just so much. It's just so much less work from an installation and configuration perspective. Why not?
So to be honest, 80% of our customers don't get to wave a wand and say, I'm just going to get to a new network, right? Most of them, they start with a lab pilot, a production proof of concept in a site, in a few stores, in a floor, something, and then essentially they draw a line and say, my new solution. So we say certify and then standardize. So once you certify, which is the POC and the production pilot, and then you standardize, from there on, everything net new. It could be 2 buildings a day the next year and 5 buildings the year after, or you rip the Band-Aid. But 80% of them, it's a slow incremental build. It is, that's the state of the network.
I can comment on that a little bit. So it's nice to hear that some people have refresh cycles. That's a thing I'm not familiar with. We'll run stuff till it dies. I didn't participate in your little contest because I'm pretty sure my Catalyst 6500s edge routers, non-E chassis, would have done pretty well in that competition that I just replaced. But for the building that's next to the building you just saw, that was running on our previous vendor. It was very new by our standards. And I did remove and replace it because we needed to have a contiguous RF domain. And our CEO said his vision was he wants to be able to walk out of one building, walk through the park, hold your call, and walk into the next building and have it all work. And we said, well, we're going to have to swap out the vendor to do that. The thing that they were concerned about was the operational costs in doing it. Our wiring guys hung the APs. The fact that the bracket was even compatible with our legacy vendor was, wow, that was just a curious coincidence. I don't know how that happened. And then they gave me a spreadsheet. I uploaded it with my Ekahau files. I had that building back up in about a day once all the APs were hung. And since I did the original deployment took 2 weeks because we had like 30% of the APs who wouldn't join the controller, and we had to hunt them down one at a time and console into them on the ceiling, and literally nothing like that ever happened. We didn't have we had a couple of bad APs, a couple of DOAs, that happens, but in terms of getting the deployment right and how easy it was to deploy, one engineer did a 500 AP building in a couple of days once they were all hung. It was just so easy that I'm very lazy. So I like simple, I like easy.
Devin, what's been your
I
experience?
just wanted to touch on that
Yeah.
part where he was talking about a few APs having issues. One of my favorite features that we've got to experience, we did have a couple minor issues with APs in the field, but there's an ability where the APs will talk to neighbors via Bluetooth and report issues about what's going on with an AP that'll come up. And that way I could go, well, it's got an IP address, it's not getting an IP address, it's on, everything seems fine, what's going on? It saved a tremendous amount of time on stuff like that when we were deploying it.
What Devin's talking about is a Juniper Mist AP is actually going to, even if it has no cloud connectivity, because IP address is busted or port config is busted, will be able to speak to its neighbor using Bluetooth. Imagine if you are a retail store chain running thousands of stores, Brad is and Craig is, or a school district all over the city, and running around finding these APs and what's going on. That Bluetooth, talking to the neighbor AP, game changing, right? It's
absolutely. I mean, with the previous vendor solution that we had, I wasn't around when they did that installation, but as we're rolling this out, and we're still rolling it out, I've come to find that there are APs that just never ever came online. And no one even knew about it. There's APs all over the district that no one knows anything about it. It got lost, it wasn't tracked properly.
But it never happens to other people.
We're tracking them in spreadsheets, we have to worry about this inventory tracking and all these other things, and they just disappear. And then someone says, hey, there's an AP here, it doesn't do anything at all. And now we can see them now that they're all being tracked properly and they're coming online and reporting issues properly.
Craig, you were saying?
I was just thinking, when it was installed, there was a light on it, so the installer figured
Right.
it was fine. But like in the Mist dashboard, it'll say something like no Ethernet link. It's like, how do I know if an AP is not working if it doesn't have an Ethernet link? Like, that's how.
Yeah. Brad, you used to maintain, you showed me a spreadsheet where you were maintaining the RF plan for 2,700 Chick-fil-A stores. It was, you had the 2.4 gig RF channel numbers, 5 gig channel numbers, and the power levels that you had per store in a spreadsheet. How is RRM working for you?
Yeah, and it's funny. So Brian from Amazon that was actually touched on this point a little earlier. We did have to do a lot of tweaking, a lot of manipulation, and then monotonous stuff that you shouldn't have to do. That's what we want to rely on the vendor to just kind of handle behind the scenes. So the RRM of especially the semi-directional and directional antennas is so much better, and that's we've seen a lot less sticky clients, and that's the other piece. We'll get some of our clients are iPads, some are really inexpensive IoT devices, and even some legacy printers and things like that. So we have to be accommodative to all these different devices, and so some behave differently. But Mist has that. It's really, really well done, where it dials back the channel. It doesn't just blast out, 20 dBm of channel. It dials it back, and it really does understand, and it changes every night. So it, as the environments change, so we've seen a lot of success with that. That's actually one of my favorite parts of your product.
So let's talk about operational efficiency. So all of this is cool. You're all nerds. You got more visibility now. Great, but what has it meant for your business? I mean, maybe John, start with you. What did it in dollars and cents and hours and people? Has this meant anything to you?
Oh, it definitely has, because we have a lot of offices all over the world. They don't like to pay for travel. And so we were engaging a lot of professional services. And one of the things that we said was, with Mist, we don't need wireless deployment as part of professional services. If you need someone to cable up your switches, okay, that's an issue, not an issue me. My APs will come up as long as they're plugged in, as long as they can see the internet, and I'll take it from there. And so I've done bring-ups in offices, Europe, Asia Pacific, just everywhere. It's just like, the APs just come up, you just apply a template, you're done. And I can tell them, oh, well, we shipped you 20 APs for this office, and we've only got, these APs are missing. What's going on? They haven't been seen. What's going on? So it really allows us to do it without having to travel there, because traveling there is not always an option.
You were using professional services quite a bit, actually, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Devin, what's been the operational impact for you? You're a school district, lean IT.
I mean, we're a small team, and we've had almost no issues that I could think of, really. I mean, it's really been impressive so far. One of the big things that I'm most happy about is that recently we just finished up a lot of the assessments that were going on in the district for students, standardized testing, things like that. And we had a lot of issues prior to COVID with some of that going on, and there were 0 reports, ultimately. There were things that people said were network issues, and we were able to quickly go, no, that's somebody else, not me.
Right. One of the things Tom Wilburn takes pride in, and he talks about, is we really eliminate support tickets and user complaints, right? The ServiceNow team, Sajeev and Satish here, they've taught us this race to 0. You've experienced that. You've seen support tickets go out of your system after this.
Yeah.
Brad, what's been your experience?
I could talk about this all day, so I'll just make two quick points. One is something John said earlier. We want to free up time to do other things. Like, there's a lot of monotonous things you have to do with some vendors. Like, I don't want to have to worry about, does this access, why are these 10 access points on code that, it's not compliant with where we need to be, or they didn't get the config changes. So with Mist, that's one big piece. Never worry about that. You set that at the restaurant level. You say, okay, any access point that's going in here is going to be running this code. And if once it hits that restaurant, bang, it gets the code, and that's the end of it. Config changes are also, super easy. You're just not pushing changes to devices, and now that we have. But I'll say that the biggest thing that I get a lot of feedback from our help desk support, the difference between our old vendor and new vendor. We're huge cloud people, love the cloud stuff, right? But when you get a lot of devices in the cloud, and I was kind of worried about this with Mist, but you can put 10 access points in, and it's snappy and speedy, and you click, and it's just working. And our old vendor, it was very slow. We're hitting these limitations. And now, we have almost 20,000 APs in the Mist dashboard, and it's just as fast as it was day one, where you're clicking around. So I would say that is just huge, to be able to have your help support people going and not have to worry about latency with the dashboard. So.
And how many of those things would fail on the previous vendor too? Those pushing out those configurations, those 20,000.
It was a full-time job, yeah.
And then having to track that.
Well,
down.
and it gets back to the ease of the deployment thing. So if you come from a controller-based environment, you're probably going, oh, I got to go touch all my switch ports now because I have to trunk down to the AP. And I'm not perfect. I would miss a few, but Marvis would tell me, you missed this VLAN on this port on this switch. And I'm like, oh, okay, my bad. And you can go and fix it. So the visibility just makes the deployment easier. You don't have to troubleshoot why didn't it. The AP will tell you why it didn't come up. And that just saves time, which saves money.
Brad, to the point of responsiveness, and I think we are over time, so we're getting the hook. I'll tell you, Gmail, when it was founded, Gmail had a measure on, we will take those 3 questions. Okay, Jen, I can't help that. So Gmail had a philosophy that anything when you load in Gmail should load in less than 100 milliseconds, right? So at Mist, we said, because we are a scalable, elastic microservices cloud, we will throw servers at the problem. We will throw more compute at the problem. But a 10 AP deployment or a 10,000 AP deployment, and we actually have 2 customers that have 160,000 access points in one instance. The idea was that their responsiveness is the same, right? It's architecture, it's product. So we'll go to the 3 questions, and then we're out. So.
What's up? My name is Tim Haney from Workday. My question is, how has Mist enabled you to identify misbehaving client drivers, client firmware, anything that's happening on the client side that is not necessarily the network problem, but the remediation must take place down at the endpoint?
It tells me bad DNS servers. We've had some issues where we've had some like misbehaving DNS servers, and I've had users who'll come up on Slack and say, yeah, wireless is acting really wonky, and I go and I look at their client and I go, no, your DNS server's acting wonky. It's not a network issue.
What about like, Intel could release a driver update, or a brand new Intel chipset could come out and it has bugs on it. Has there been any success in correlating those issues to minimize, the impact as those devices are coming onto the network?
Yeah, and for us, just the sheer amount of telemetry and data that Mist is ingesting, it's able, to provide that correlation, right? So a specific device or type of device on a specific operating system or version of said operating system, it is able to very simply identify that and present it to you. There's a specific instance recently with us. We have a certain model of cell phone that has had roaming issues for quite some time, and Mist was able to, has been able to point us in the right direction, and now we're down to a specific model at a minimum, and we are working directly with that manufacturer to try to resolve that issue, and the dynamic packet capture and the telemetry that Mist is able to provide us has been crucial in helping
Tim,
narrow that down.
In the demo, I'm going to show you, we're adding more to that, right? What Craig is saying is, OS categorization, device type categorization. Marvis client for Windows is something that we're actually going to talk about today, and for Mac coming out, and Marvis client for Android already exists. That's where the specific Intel driver version, the Zebra handheld driver version, that kind of stuff will come directly into Marvis. You'll be able to see that in the SLEs as well, beyond what we have today. So, thank you, and thank you, Tim. All right, last question maybe.
Me or him?
You.
Okay, again, I'm Jeff Helton, resident engineer for the Cosmopolitan. Question I've got is we've talked about wireless for most of the day and how Mist really fits that, and I can see how the AI really helps to bring the wireless network more as a fabric. What experiences have you had in the wired world with this? Nowadays, for a lot of installations, wireless or wired is just a matter of pure convenience. There's no real difference as far as types of services you offer or that kind of thing. So how has Mist helped, or has Mist helped in your wired deployments?
Craig, I'll point to you.
Yeah, for our wired deployments, it's really eased the deployment process, mainly due to being able to templatize everything, and it makes version control easier, right? You're not just managing a single text document. You're not reliant on manual, like a managed server that you then have to modify the scripts on and things like that. You just throw the template into Mist and you're off. For us to deploy a store, like say the MDF, right, the main IT closet in a store, we typically have 3 switches in a stack or virtual chassis, and to get that store ready for opening day, I think in total it's 10 steps, including pictures of like hitting OK. Like it's really that simple. So I mean, to apply that, the 99%, 99.5% of that switch's config, you type in a singular string into the Mist dashboard and it's there. You don't even have to like hit save or refresh or anything. Like you type the string in, and as soon as it matches, everything is populated, and then you just save and it's ready to go.
Yeah, what Craig is talking about is you give a switch a role and say, oh, this is an access switch, an MDF switch. Boom, everything else, it inherits that from there. So
Yeah.
awesome.
And then on the operational side, it was Mist has like pre-built permission sets, and we were pretty quickly able to integrate SSO with Mist and provide access to our service desk. And then Marvis is able to identify when there's a VLAN mismatch or a bad cable, or there's an AP down or what have you. Or like you can look at a port and find a MAC address and see what device is connected to it. Those are types of things that before our service desk didn't have access to, and even if they did, they wouldn't have necessarily understood exactly what they were looking at, or they would have required a lot of training to understand what was really going on there. But with Mist, I mean, we had one training session, and that, like the amount of times that our service desk touches us now with questions, in particular about our wired environment, is significantly reduced. I mean, I would say at least half. Most of the time when they need to touch us now, it's like, well, hey, we found this device, it's on the wrong VLAN, it's on this port on this switch, can you flip it for us? So, yeah.
Awesome. I know some of you have experience, but I think I really am late. Tom, I'm not going to come to you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the gentlemen, for being part of this. So appreciate it.